Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Whether you are a parent, teacher, kid, student, all of the things, you are going to really enjoy this episode. We are talking about back to school meal prep tips, and this is not just for a student or teacher. Like I said, this could be really for anyone because, coming out of the summer tends to be a lot more free and flexible and more vacations, and we're kind of outside of our usual routine. And then come September, August or September, depending on where you live or what grade you're in or what grade you teach, now we start to get back into this routine. And so all of a sudden our brains go, I have to meal prep. I have to use all of my every Sunday to cook everything for the week, whether that's just for me or for my whole family. It's exhausting, right? And so this is where we can get stuck because for some of us, it might look really, really rigid, and it feels like it has to be a certain way in order to work for us. And then for others, it's like, well, because it can't look that way, why do I even try? And then it becomes kind of like a free-for-all. Then we're eating, kind of anything that we're not eating, or we're eating too much, or it's kind of all over the place. So I wanted to kind of talk about some back-to-school meal prep tips to kind of really help you. This was actually inspired by the fact that I was featured in a magazine, Chef Teeny Home Magazine. It's an online platform that you can download yourself. I put the link in the show notes, where I had the section of, I gave ideas for like bento box ideas. I think they're amazing, and I think they're so great, but not just for kids, but for adults. Just putting having your little sections of your bento boxes. There's different, I came up with different inspiring ideas and, different flavor profiles and all that. And it's a really good read. It's like a 1-page read, just my section, but the magazine, it's quick, easy to read. There's everything from so many delicious mouth-watering back-to-school recipes to hottest fall fashion tips. It's seriously packed with a bunch of different expert insights, and you really don't want to miss it. So whether you're a foodie looking for delicious lunchbox ideas or a fashion enthusiast ready to revamp your autumn wardrobe, Chef Teeny's got you covered. So don't miss out. Download your copy now at chefteeny.com/ChefTeenyMagazine, where you can dive into a world of inspiration. And I put the link in the show notes so it's easy for you to find. So my section, I think, is pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I really love it, but there's also so much more incredible stuff. So I'm not going to share those bento box ideas with you here on the podcast because I really want you to download that. But what I am going to share are some back to school meal prep tips. And where people get stuck is they think meal prep needs to be, everything needs to be in airtight, containers, perfectly portioned, and on Sunday, ready for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that is exhausting, and you don't need to do that. However, what you might want to do is take a look at your calendar each week and kind of plan ahead. And so you kind of want to have an idea of what is it that you have in your pantry versus what is it that you need to purchase. And you're going to want to create some sort of a plan to organize both your grocery shopping and your prep work. So sometimes it can be really overwhelming. Imagine using Sunday as the day to go to the grocery store, prep and cook and clean. And that's a lot. For some people, that really works for them. But my brain, it doesn't work that way for me. So I usually like to do my grocery shopping one day. And for some of you, you might need to get it delivered. It might be easier. Or you go pick it up. And I prep the next day. And even sometimes I cook a different day. It doesn't all have to be together, guys. It's all different. So let me explain the difference of, what grocery shopping looks like. So that could either be picking up your groceries, and then putting them away, or getting them delivered and then putting them away. That's grocery shopping. Prepping is not necessarily cooking. So prepping could be cutting up some veggies so that way when it's time to cook, you just throw it in the pan. Now, you can skip this step depending on your budget, and you can buy things that are already, washed and cut. But you might want to prep. Prep might be marinating some chicken. Prep could also be taking something out of your freezer so it's ready to defrost so that you can cook it the next day. That's the difference. So that's where planning ahead is really important, because there's a few steps in this and it can seem a little bit overwhelming, but the more you do it, it just becomes habit. If you get in the habit of looking at your week or even looking at your day the night before, then you're going to stay ahead of things. So one of the most important skills that any successful person has, whether that be in business, nutrition, life, all the things, is they anticipate their needs. So planning ahead is anticipating your need. It's understanding that, this week you're actually going to be, you're actually not going to be home a lot. And you have plans with a friend on Tuesday, and then you have, you're going out to lunch with another, with your coworkers on Wednesday or whatever it is. And it's like, actually, I don't have to buy as many groceries as I usually do, right? So really think ahead. The other thing I think is really important with planning ahead, and this is something that comes up with clients a lot, is part of anticipating your needs, is understanding that in the beginning of the week, you're probably going to have a lot more energy. You're probably going to have a little bit more, gusto. And then towards the end, we tend to get tired out. Also, things like fresh produce, the shelf life isn't as long, right, as like canned and frozen stuff. So knowing this, I usually tell my clients to, buy a combination of fresh and frozen or fresh and canned options as well. So maybe in the beginning of the week, you cook, some veggies or whatnot. And then the second half of the week, you allow for those things like the frozen veggies that you just put in the microwave, or the canned veggies that you just toss on the stove, or whatever it is. And you anticipate that and you know that. So when you go to the grocery store, that will really help you when it comes to organizing yourself and deciding, how much do I need of this and how much do I need of that? And just always, when you're doing that pantry check, always make sure there's enough in your freezer and in your pantry, so when you don't feel like cooking or you run out of the fresh food or whatever it is, you at least have something. Fresh, frozen fruits and vegetables and canned fruits and vegetables, they are just as nutrient dense, if not sometimes more so than your fresh, because of the fact that they're usually picked and frozen or like picked and canned. And obviously you need to be mindful of certain additives like added sugar or salt, depending on your, health issues, if you have any health issues, or you're just something who's being more mindful of that. But their nutrition quality is the same, if not more so. Like I said, it depends, unless it's coming from your garden, which we're actually it's definitely still in that season, but we're starting to come out of it a little bit. That's definitely not something you want to be afraid of, because that ends up happening is then we end up eating things we didn't even want, or that the nutrient profile isn't even close to where it could have been from a fruit or veggie. And it just, that's how the balance gets a little bit out of whack. Okay. So that's tip number one, planning ahead. Tip number two, definitely doing some batch cooking. So I'll explain my method. So it doesn't necessarily need to be that on Sundays you're cooking for the entire week, but I usually like to break it up into, I would say, try to cook, and everyone's different. So for some people, they, to the moms, I don't know how you guys do this, but you do it. You cook every night because you want it to be fresh on the stove. That's how my mom was. It's just exhausting. But so maybe like you really are cooking every day before time for dinner. Maybe it's like from 3 to 5 you cook, and then everybody eats at 5:30, and that works for you. But if you don't have to do that, or if there's certain things you can cook ahead of time, that is something that you definitely want to try to do. So when it comes to batch cooking, I like to break it up. I would say if you cook 2 to 3 times a week, it usually allows you to do some batch cooking, but not having to do so much of it. And then also you never get bored, and then there's lots of variety. So what I like to do is I like to tell people to, when they're cooking, for example, say tonight's dinner is going to be chicken cutlets with, brown rice and vegetables. I don't know. I'm like really bored, right? I'm thinking boring things right now because I'm just whatever. All right. So instead of just making the chicken cutlet, first of all, don't just make the chicken cutlets enough for tonight for dinner. Make chicken cutlets enough for tonight for dinner and for tomorrow. While you already have, let's say, the seasoning out or the pan out, why don't you also on the stovetop maybe saute some shrimp, let's say. So now we have like extra options for the next day. So you cook 2 proteins instead of just 1. And you don't just cook enough for 1 meal, you cook enough for 2. Okay, then your starches. Maybe for this meal, you're having rice, but maybe for tomorrow's meal, you want to have pasta. So instead of just cooking the rice, and instead of just cooking for tonight, also cook for tomorrow. And instead of just cooking rice, also cook pasta. So you have an option for tomorrow, for another day, or for a different combination of things. So 2 proteins, 2 starches. Don't just cook 1 veggie, cook 2 different types of vegetables. Last night I did Brussels sprouts and eggplant. I only ate the eggplant last night, but I had the Brussels sprouts today for lunch because it was already done. So I'm already cooking, may as well. I already have all the seasonings out. I already have all the things that I already have my cutting board out. I may as well just, while the eggplant cooks, also cook the Brussels sprouts, right? What else? So we have your veggies, we have your starches, we have your proteins, and then fats usually find their way. And then that's really it. Now, in regards to tip number 3, so tip number 1, planning ahead. Tip number 2, batch cooking. Tip number 3 is putting it in the container. So you can, when you're putting stuff away, just put it all, put all the chicken together, put all the shrimp together, put all the veggies together, blah, 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 like all that. But before you do that, also make your lunch for tomorrow. Put it in a container so it's easy. So now the next day, all you have to do is microwave it, or all you need to do is take it, right? So you don't have to put them all into those containers if that because maybe one day you want to mix the rice with the shrimp, and maybe the other day you want to do the chicken with the pasta, and maybe the other day you want to use the Brussels sprouts, and the other day you want to use the eggplant. And so the meal doesn't have to look exactly the same each day. So just batch cook it, put them in their, individual containers, but then maybe you can from there do a few different smaller combinations, or just make one little combo and then just leave it to your device. So then, maybe the other day you have a salad kit and you take your salad kit and you throw a little bit of the rice and a little bit of the shrimp on there. And now you have a balanced meal, right? So it doesn't, just because you made it look one way, it doesn't mean it needs to look that way the next day. Okay? So that goes to tip number 4, which is also, you could always, when you're prepping things, so say for example, you do this method that I talk about, 2 proteins, 2 starches, 2 veggies, but you're actually not even going to be home for the next 2 days. You can cook it and then freeze it. There's certain things that are more freezer friendly than others, so maybe that's something that you think about. But or if you have more time one day, maybe you make yourself, maybe this isn't something you have all the time, like a lasagna, let's say, but you really like it, you're in the mood for it. So you make a tray of lasagna, but maybe you freeze half of it. Or you know what? Maybe you make 2 trays of lasagna and you freeze one, you cook both, you freeze one, and then you eat the other and have that for the week, right? So that's a really great example of things you could do. So definitely think about, what are some freezer-friendly meals that you can prepare and freeze to have in convenience for those nights when you really don't want to cook, right? And maybe, but also budget-friendly. Like if the times you don't want to cook, you could always order in or do takeout, which is totally fine. But maybe you don't want to do that, right? So you make, always, I would say, cook ahead of time. Batch cook and then freeze some of it. Okay. Tip number 5, packing some snacks. So this, I think whether you have kids or not, if you're making a little lunch bag, I think what happens is we often I feel like, especially those who are teachers or anybody that works if you're out a lot, like if you work from home, I don't know if you need to do this as much, but I still think it's helpful, but definitely to make little snack packs. So this is where the bento box idea can work for you, or just making sure you're bringing enough food with you, because for those who commute, this is a big one. You don't anticipate the traffic, you don't anticipate the long hours, and you think that you don't need as much food throughout the day than you actually do, and then you come home starving and then you overeat. So make sure you're also packing snacks. And so this could be things that you could prep this stuff. So for example, Egg muffins are a recipe I recommend to a lot of people. They also, like the egg bites they sell at like Starbucks, they have them, but you could also make them. And it's like a really great like high protein snack, or like making things like hard boiled eggs or whatever. You know, obviously those are things that you would have or require a little bit of prep, but you could also buy things that are pre-portioned. I usually encourage a lot of the things that actually don't require like a lot of cook and prep at all. Like for example, baby carrots, cherry tomatoes, sugar snap peas. These are vegetables that you don't have to worry about washing, cutting, and prepping. And you could even buy like little mini like hummus packets or guacamole packets, or those are things that like you can buy the big containers, and just like that might be the little bit of prep, is like putting them in a little container for dipping, or buying like a big thing of trail mix, but then like putting them into like pre-portioned containers, or, you know, something like popcorn or whatever. So don't forget about the snacks. When we're talking about like back to school meal prep tips, you definitely want to fill the gaps in between as well. Also fresh fruit, really easy, doesn't really require much of like prep at all. For example, like apples and bananas, like you know, you don't have to chop them and cut them, but if you want to, you can. And then pair it with a little bit of like a nut butter, peanut butter. They have, once again, it's going to cost a little bit more, but like you could always buy like these like pre-portioned like peanut butter packets, or you can just buy a big thing of peanut butter, take a tablespoon or two, put it in a container, and bring it along with your fruit. It's also good with veggies. Carrots with peanut butter is actually really good. Actually, celery and peanut butter, and then raisins on top, ants in a log, not just for kids, by the way. Really delish. Okay, tip number 6, and this probably could have also gone with tip number 4, but the freezer-friendly meals, is getting something like a slow cooker or an Instapot, or an air fryer. These really, really help. Where the other day I made shrimp in the air fryer, and it was so great because I was like, I don't want to have to stand over the stove top and like worry about turning it. Shrimp takes less than 8 minutes, I think, 5-6 minutes. Like shrimp does not take a long time on the stove top at all. But still, my brain was like, I don't want to have to cut up the garlic, blah, blah, blah. So all I did was I just seasoned the shrimp, sprayed the air fryer pan with a little olive oil spray, put it in the air fryer, I think, for 6 minutes, and it was done, and it was actually delicious. So make sure that you have those things available to you. It's so worth the investment using a slow cooker or Instapot or air fryer. It's so great. It's such an easy, it's like so easy with cleaning and stuff. Really, really great options. Really great. You could do a lot of great side dishes. So obviously like a slow cooker or an Instapot, you can do a lot of things like chilies and stews and, definitely like more like hearty meals, but something like an air fryer, you could do a lot of side dishes. A lot of times I'll like cook, I'll do sweet potato fries, or I'll make my Brussels sprouts in there. Like I said, I did the shrimp the other day. I mean, it's really, really great. And those things are like set it and forget it. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to, whatever. It's just like super easy to do. So 10 out of 10 recommend you invest in one of those things. And they're pretty affordable nowadays. Definitely worth it. I know counter space can be an issue for some of you, so just pick one. Actually, my air fryer has a bunch of different functions, so I can use it for like a lot of different things. I could put it on bake, broil. I'm pretty sure I have slow cooker options or Instapot. I'm pretty sure. I don't really ever use that, just because I work from home most of the time. So for me, I'm not. I don't know, maybe I'll change, but that just is not my lifestyle. But for some people, it's perfect. You put it on in the morning, and then it's ready for you when you come home. Super, super cool. All right. Tip number 7, get to know your staples. So this is really important. This is something I do with clients. Inside of the 6 Months of Food Freedom program, we get really clear on what their usual breakfast options are, lunch options are, dinner options, snack options, and then I obviously give them feedback and tips on ways to make it more nutritious, more balanced, more consistent, all of those things. And we start to know that like on, their breakfast, they usually rotate between, let's say, overnight oats and a veggie omelet, right? With some toast or whatnot. So those are things that now when it comes to the grocery shopping, we don't even think twice about it, right? And this is how it can become really budget friendly as well, because it just becomes one of those things that you're just able to do. Because you just know, and it's just so much easier. So anyways, those are things that I definitely recommend you get to know. You know, what do you usually like to have for lunch? What do you usually like to have for dinner? You know, are you ones that you like Mondays is like meatless Mondays, and Tuesdays tacos Tuesdays, Wednesdays wing it Wednesday, Thursday is I don't know, pizza, Fridays fish, I don't know. Anyways, turkey Thursdays, there we go. Fish Fridays. I love the theme days. I think it's helpful. It's definitely helpful when you have a family, right? So if that is for you, definitely, which leads to number 8 actually. So keep it basic, but if you have a family, and chances are this is like back to school tips, so my guess is that most of you listening probably do. But maybe, you know what, maybe you're in college and maybe your family is your roommates or something. Involve them, right? So tip number 8 is involve the family. If you, especially those with kids, like you want them to eat your food so that way you don't have to make a bazillion different things, have them tell you, like maybe they pick Monday night's dinner. Maybe you have 3 kids and a husband, right? Like, and then you're the one doing the cooking, right? Monday, you know, little Timmy gets to pick. Tuesday, Ronnie gets to pick. Wednesday, Melissa gets to pick. Thursday, your husband gets to pick. Friday, you get to pick. Take out. Woohoo! Right? So let that be something that, you know, where you involve everyone. So that way it makes it fun. And even if I know getting them in the kitchen could sometimes be a headache, but it's what will help them develop the skills for themselves in the future. It will help them become more balanced eaters. And it will help them try new things, and it will just bring the whole family together in so many great ways. So these are just a few tips to help you when it comes to meal prep and getting back into the swing of things, getting back in the routine. If you're looking for extra support and guidance, please don't hesitate to reach out. And definitely, we're still taking clients for the 6 months of food freedom program. If that's something that you're interested in, definitely go to www.tipswithtony.com/coaching to apply. And if I can help you with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Make sure you download that free magazine from Chef Teeny Magazine. It's such a great magazine. And then my section, I really love it. I think you're going to love it too. If you're looking for some fun bento box ideas, definitely download your copy. And if this was helpful for you in any way, make sure you take a screenshot of it, share it on your story, tag me at tips_with_Tony with an I, or send it to a friend. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you get notified when a new episode comes out. And that is it for me today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, this is Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.